Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tanya, and today I'm gonna do a reaction video. This is a reaction to a video called 15 Things I Love About Living in Australia. Best Things About Living in Australia as a Foreigner. It's a very long title, but this is a video that was suggested in my Discord, and the channel is called Dreaming of Down Under. And I've never seen this channel before, so it's a brand new one, first time reaction for me. And all I know about it is that the person who requested it in Discord said that this person is, I think, from the UK. So we're gonna see what living in Australia is like for her. And here's Cody, everybody. He's being a little bean, laying in front of me. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I have the air turned up so that hopefully it won't kick on in the middle of this. So before it gets too hot, I'm gonna get started. Here we go.
If you're thinking of moving to Australia, you're probably wondering what the benefits are. I moved to Australia from the UK in 2015, and I'm gonna run through 15 things that I love about living in Australia. I'm Lisa from Australian travel and migration blog dreamingofdownunder.com, and I've travelled almost the whole coastline of Australia, and I've spent the last 6 years living in Sydney. So here are the reasons that I think you should move to Australia. The first thing I love about Australia is how diverse the landscape is.
It definitely sounds like people who move to Australia from another country often go to Sydney, which I would say is probably a lot like the States, where if anyone moves to the States from another country, they usually go to like Florida, California, Texas, New York, and like that's it. Or if they come to the Midwest at all, they only go to Chicago. So
everybody knows that Australia has amazing beaches, but it also has a huge array of different types of scenery, and it's a really enormous country with lots of different climates. As well as beaches, Australia has beautiful mountain ranges, it has different types of rainforest, it has ancient forests with some of the tallest tree species in the world, it has desert, it has dry scenery with salt lakes, it's got the Great Barrier Reef. The scenery in Australia is phenomenal.
Yeah. Another thing that's a lot like the States is that you can go to many different areas in the States and get totally different types of weather and scenery and stuff. I think we have that in common with Australia, whereas people from the UK, it's not as big of a country, so they just don't have as much like scenery and different weather that like we do.
Two is the variation in climate across the country. Because Australia is so huge, it has lots of different climates in the different regions. So I live in Sydney, which is kind of a middle of the range climate for Australia. But if I want a hot holiday, I can just fly a couple of hours north to Queensland and it's high 20s. If I want to go skiing, I could fly a couple of hours southwest and go to a ski resort. So really, whatever time of year it is, you can find.
I actually just found out there was a couple of Australians in my Discord that just told me the other day, actually, that you guys have ski resorts there, and I had no idea. Like, I knew that it could snow there, obviously, but I didn't know that anywhere there ever got enough snow that you could actually ski. So that was new information that I just learned in my Discord, actually.
Somewhere to suit whatever kind of holiday you want. Also, if you're moving here, you can find the right kind of climate for you. I love Sydney climate. It's got hot summers, a little bit too humid, but that's okay, and the winters are mild but not too cold, so that's just right for me. Number 3 is the coffee culture in Australia. Coming from the UK, it is popular to go out for coffee there, but they generally have the big chain stores like Starbucks and Nero and Costa, whereas in Australia they've got a sort of older coffee culture, which apparently came from the early Italian settlers and Greek settlers, I think. So Melbourne in particular is very coffee cultured, so they have lots and lots of really independent small cafes rather than big chains. They do have some big chains, but they've lots and lots of really arty, kind of funky cafes. Even the most untrendy of suburbs can have like really, really nice cafes. So I do love that about Australia. Also, it's very popular to go and meet friends for coffee in the morning. It has more of a breakfast culture in Australia. So
So we have coffee houses here in my hometown that are more like this also. We have the chains, but we also have coffee houses like this here in my town. And as far as like morning coffee culture or going out for coffee for breakfast, I feel like here it's definitely more of like an older person thing. Like for instance, my father-in-law who's in his 70s, he goes out to eat for breakfast once a week with his friends, and they eat breakfast and drink coffee. There's a lot of older people who will go and sit at McDonald's for coffee at 7 in the morning, or a diner or whatever. I feel like going out to coffee in the morning is very much an older generation thing.
Living by the beaches like I do, you just go down and people are meeting friends for coffee, sitting outside cafes, going for walks. It's a really nice culture. Number 4 is Australia's healthcare system, which I think is brilliant. So it's not like in the UK where it's completely publicly funded and everything's free, but it's also not completely privately funded. It's kind of a hybrid. So you can get a lot of services for free here. You can see a GP for free, hospital treatment is generally free. And then a lot of things are partly subsidised by the government, so you pay the bill and then you get a refund of part of that amount. So I think just having that extra money in the system, also it's quite common to have health insurance here, more so I would say than in the UK. But having all that extra funding in the system just means that it's not as strained, so it's very, very quick to get medical attention. In my experience, you can see a GP on the day, even if I look at appointments online in the afternoon, I can still have a choice of doctors for that day. To have an x-ray, you usually just walk straight in and don't need an appointment. With scans, I've found that you can normally get an appointment the next day. Also with seeing specialists, it's quite easy to get an appointment to see a specialist. It's not like in the UK where you kind of have to, you know, be half dead before they'll let you go and see one. I had a chronic...
I've said this before, but one of my very best friends lives in England. She's from England. And I remember her telling me like horror stories of whenever she's needed to go to get into the doctor or specialist or whatever, her waiting list has always been so freaking long just to get seen. And it's so crazy to me. But it's the same as like other people looking at the American healthcare system and thinking that our healthcare sucks and all this. And while there are many things that really does suck about our healthcare in the United States, I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize or don't talk about, is that if you're like lower income or even like lower to lower middle income, you can get, like if you have children, your children can be on a government plan, a free plan, where you can take your kids to the doctor, the hospital, whatever they need done, and the government pays for it. So the parents never have to worry about that until the kid turns like 18, you know? So these are things that are options in the US. It's not just that even if you are the poorest of poor, you can't get medical care.
Actually, I had multiple chronic illnesses that I had for years in the UK, and I couldn't get anywhere with the doctor. I got sent for a few tests. They did a few blood tests. I was just told, no, you're imagining it, basically. Here, the first time I went to see a GP, they did blood tests. She immediately sent me to see a specialist, and I got to choose what kind of specialist depending on what symptom I was most worried about. I saw a neurologist on the same day in the GP surgery. He just happened to be working there that day. He sent me for tests. I came back.
It's a lot like that here.
With a neurological condition. He then got me referred to a rheumatologist, and I saw her. She diagnosed me on the spot with fibromyalgia. Basically just did like they press points on your body and see if it hurts. Count how many times you scream. She diagnosed me on the spot with that, did some blood tests, went back to see her, and I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that was like the underlying cause. So just within like a few months, I had years and years of illness just diagnosed like that. It's such a good system. Number 5 is...
It's sad that, you know, she has those issues that she deals with, but I'm happy that she was able to go somewhere that diagnosed her properly. While I don't have an autoimmune disease or fibromyalgia, I do have chronic pain because I have scoliosis, which is curvature of the spine, if you don't know. So I have daily back pain and migraines and neck pain and that sort of stuff. So I do understand like the chronic pain thing. So, but I am glad that she was able to get diagnosed.
Friendly it is in Australia, and what a sense of community there is. I live in Sydney, which is the biggest, busiest city, and I've heard people saying it's really fast paced, it's unfriendly, but I just haven't found that. I think compared to where I'm from in the UK, it's very friendly, it's very normal to say hello to strangers. Maybe if you're living right in the city centre, that might be a bit different, but I live in a beach area and everyone's really friendly. Like whenever I walk the dog, I have multiple conversations with people. I don't start them, I'm not really that kind of person, but people
Brits never do.
People are so willing to.
That's why it's so funny that my British best friend, me and her met in 2006, and she definitely initiated it, with, you know, because it's so funny that British people are usually the more, I don't know if timid's the right word, they're just more reserved, but she was the one who started the conversation with me. I'm pretty shy.
Help you out. It's a really, really friendly culture. Number 6 is the diverse nationalities in Australia. A really huge proportion of people in Australia were born overseas, and even a lot of Australians have parents who were born overseas, so it is a very accepting culture, I found, and it's really nice just to hear lots of different accents and meet people from different places. And I do find, because there's a lot of expats, it makes it a little bit easier to make friends, because generally I found expats are sort of actively looking to make friends, particularly if they're quite new. Number 7 is a culture of being really respectful and polite to service workers, and just generally being sort of inclusive. I worked in retail in the UK as a student, and honestly the amount of moaning and abuse you got from customers, I hated it. People used to come in every day and complain. And here I worked in a clothes shop called Portman's when I was doing my work in holiday. And honestly, in 3 months, I only had one customer come in and moan. In 3 months, I couldn't believe it. It's a different world. It's just not accepted to sort of take.
It sounds to me that like all these things that she's listing I almost feel like she could be talking about America also, because these are some of the things that like America and Australia have in common, whereas the UK is a little bit different than the rest of us. Like here in America, you get super friendly service, and no, it is not because, I mean, there may be people who are being extra friendly, a little faker, or they just want a bigger tip, but for the most part, everybody here's friendliness is genuine friendliness, you know? I'm in Illinois, so I can't speak for all of the United States. I know that there are places here where people are assholes, but here where I'm from, predominantly everyone is just super, super friendly, and they're genuinely friendly.
Misery out on people working in shops, and I don't know how the culture's so different in the UK. It's just constant moaning, and the shop's not set up right, and why is this upstairs, and I wanted discounts.
The fact that you guys say moaning is so
really
funny to me.
Customers,
we say like whining or
it's
complaining.
Just not that culture. Like people are just a lot politer, I find.
Or I guess you Aussies would be saying whinging, right? Is that right?
8 is how fair the wages are in Australia. The minimum wage is, I think, just over $22 an hour, which is quite high. So it's actually...
Whoa! Does that cover all of Australia, or is that like a per state thing? Because here in the United States, this is very much a per state thing. Every state has a different minimum wage. I think ours in Illinois just got raised to $15 an hour, and like, how long ago was that? Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, even less than that, maybe 3 years ago, it was only like, I don't know, $10 an hour. It was real ridiculous.
Not standard to tip waiting staff in restaurants, because the wages basically are high enough so they don't have to rely on tips. So I couldn't really believe it when I started house sitting in Australia. Sometimes people would leave me cash to give to their cleaners and gardeners, and I just couldn't believe how high it was. That's why I started charging for house sitting, because I realised I was doing too much work for the rent I was receiving. Honestly, some of the cleaners in the houses I've been in get paid $65 an hour each. Some of the gardeners were getting paid about $60 or $70 to mow the lawn, which took them 15 minutes. The wages here can be really high for service jobs, particularly if you're self-employed. Apparently the average full-time wage in Australia is around $90,000 a year, which is really high. So yeah,
wow,
wages are really good here. Number 9 is how supportive Australia is of small independent businesses. They do have big chain stores and things here, but there seems to be a really high proportion of small businesses basically, so shops like boutiques, cafes, just creative businesses. It's really well supported here. I'm a business owner and I get a lot of support from the government, and I get emails with useful information, and also during COVID the government kind of payments to help out people even with small businesses was really great, so you are really well looked after. I feel like it's quite valued here. Number 10 is the variation of different foods here, so from supermarket food to
well, coming from the UK, I think anyone would
nationalities.
have more of
So
a variety,
particularly with so
right?
many different nationalities living in Australia, they do really cater for that, I find, in the supermarkets and restaurants. And I'm gluten-free and pescatarian, so I'm a little bit fussy, but I can always find something to eat. Occasionally I maybe have to have a salad, but generally, even if I ask in a restaurant, they will cater to being gluten-free, so they are pretty good about that kind of stuff. Number 11 is the bird life in Australia. It's one of the first things that I noticed when I moved over to Australia for the first time when I was a student. They have lots of very big, colourful birds here, very noisy. They have lots of parrots, they're really beautiful. The birds tend to be very tame as well. I've occasionally had them land on my leg. Sometimes they'll try and steal your food and stuff. Actually, cyclists have to wear helmets. This isn't a good thing.
Because the magpies.
Because the magpies will swoop and peck them. Yeah, that's not a thing I love, but it is unusual. But the birds are generally very beautiful. Number 12 is the unique wildlife in Australia. So as well as birds, there's all sorts of other animals, and yes, there are some dangerous ones, but it's very unlikely you're going to be killed.
So it's the same here with like wildlife and dangerous animals. The thing is, people say that they'd be afraid to go to Australia or the States or whatever because of certain wild animals. But the thing is, I mean, most of the people who live here, you never encounter that stuff. So it's not really a real worry. And I also want to say, while we're on the topic of wild animals, this isn't to do with this video, but there is a video going around right now that people have been reacting to, where somebody is naming off the biggest predator in every state. And I don't know where they got their information from, but if you're gonna do like a video where you're educating people on something and spitting out facts or whatever, you should have your facts correct. And this guy did not have his facts correct at all. I can't speak for all the states, but for my own state, he said our biggest predator here is coyotes, and that is absolutely not true. We do have coyotes. We have plenty of coyotes, but we also have cougars, and we have black bears and wolves, and we have bobcats. So while you may not see these all that often, they're not so completely rare that they don't exist here in Illinois. Maybe in certain areas, like black bears, like I've never once seen a black bear in my town unless I went to the zoo. But there are areas that are more catered to that type of wildlife. Whereas here in my hometown, more than once, we have seen a cougar. So that is not something that is that seriously uncommon, you know? So that is something that I think that people also need to be aware of when they're watching. Same with this, like when I watch these videos and I'm learning something new about your country or wherever, I take these videos almost with a grain of salt when it comes to like when they're giving just opinions, because this is just her opinion of living in this country, whereas somebody else's opinion might be completely different than hers. So I just take what they're saying as this is their opinion, and if I were to go there, I would form my own opinion and I would have my own thoughts and stuff. So just know that I don't take every single thing literally, you know. Sometimes it's just a very person-to-person perspective.
Marsupials, you got quokkas, you got wallabies, wombats, all sorts of animals, lots and lots of dolphins and amazing marine life. Insects are really interesting. I know some of them are scary, but like all sorts of funny hairy caterpillars and amazing butterflies.
Oh, I don't like caterpillars.
And once I just walked past this tree in Sydney and it had these jewel bugs on, which were just these amazing metallic, like blue and orange colours. Really, really amazing.
Those are
Number
pretty.
13 is the outdoor lifestyle in Australia. Because of all the amazing scenery and the generally mild weather, it is very common to enjoy outdoor activities. So things like hiking is really popular, water sports. There's lots of really well-marked walking tracks along the coastlines and through national parks. So there's just so much opportunity to get out there and enjoy yourself. It's very common to go down to the beach in the morning if you live by a beach. There's people swimming and doing boot camps on the beach in the mornings. People just meeting up for coffee. It's just very, very outdoorsy. Number 14 is that the properties tend to be quite large here. So Sydney and Melbourne are quite expensive, yes, but in general the houses are bigger than in the UK. You generally have a separate laundry room, even in like 1 or 2 bedroom flats I've been in, they quite often have a separate laundry, and you just get a little bit more space than you tend to in the UK. Number 15 is how safe it is in Australia. So everywhere has crime, of course, but generally I've always felt very safe here, and I do think it's got fairly low crime rates compared to a lot of other countries. I mean, Sydney is the busiest city here, and I've house sat in over 70 suburbs, I think, and I've never ended up anywhere that's felt rough or unsafe. I've always felt very, very safe here. A lot of people don't even lock their doors in Sydney, like even people who live nearer the city. Honestly, I house sit in some of the places.
Honestly, that seems a little odd for such a large city that there are people who do that, but here in my hometown, there are people who do that too. Like there's crime here, but like people are generally very trusting, and you know that something's not usually going to happen. At least on my side of town, I don't really worry about too much. I guess it depends on the area I go.
I've been there like, oh, we don't use a key. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's always worth locking your doors, but it is a very sort of generally safe culture here. Okay, those are my 15 things that I love about Australia. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments if you're thinking of moving to Australia, or if you're already over here and the things that you really love about it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. Are you biting your bottom? Can you not do that on camera? Is it just your leg?
That's so cute.
You're going to sit down and be still?
It's Cody.
Don't bite your bottom on the camera.
That was so cute. That was a fun little video to do. Yeah, a lot of this stuff I did already know, but like I said, I love hearing other people's perspective on things, because everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has different experiences, so it's always fun to hear these different things that people find really cool moving to a new place, and how if it's different than where they're from. And like I said throughout this video, a lot of this stuff is very similar to the US with Australia, whereas the UK is a little bit different than us with some of this stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I hope you guys did too. If you want me to react to her again, her channel is called Dreaming of Down Under, and I'll link it below if you guys want to check it out. But I would, I'm going to subscribe right now real quick. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and I'll see you next time.